Good morning. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make Italian sub rolls. This is one of my most popular recipes, and it's also a recipe that I make in my real life all the time, probably at least every other week. I love this dough because it's easy to work with, it's super soft, and it freezes great. It's one of those practical bread recipes where it's really going to cut down on your grocery budget because you're not going to be buying those soft bakery rolls. Some breads are fun to make and they're pretty and delicious, but they aren't super practical. This one is not like that at all. It is pretty and delicious, but it's also super practical. And I think you're going to find that it earns a spot in your baking rotation. So today I'm going to show you how to make the dough, shape the rolls, all of that. I'm also going to show you one of our most loved family dinners, which is just a make-ahead sub. It's great for parties. It's great for make-ahead dinners. It's rainy and gross here, so I'm doing a soup for dinner that I can make ahead of time, making the sub ahead of time, popping everything either in the fridge or in the slow cooker, and just being done early. So let's get started with the rolls. These are going to need time to rise, to bake, to cool before we can do the sub. To knead bread by machine. You absolutely can do it by hand, but it is tedious. After a while, it will hurt your hands, and chances are, if you've been kneading your bread by hand, it's a little bit under kneaded. A lot of you will fight me on this and say that bread machine bread is over kneaded. That is not true. It is really hard to over knead bread, and in general, it is under kneaded. That's why it's not coming out as soft and fluffy as you would like. Now this is a Bosch mixer. KitchenAid mixer is fine if you have a dough hook. It just goes slower and it's not as powerful. I like this Bosch mixer. You can double and triple this recipe, no problem. Another great option is a bread machine and using it on the dough cycle. So that is something that I love to do, and it will rise that dough for you. So with the Bosch, you get this separately. Like the dough hook for KitchenAid, you slide it in, you slide this on top. And now I'm gonna lose some of you again because the way I bake bread is very no fuss. I dump each and every ingredient in here, knead it by machine, and everybody will freak out that I haven't bloomed the yeast, that the water is cold, that I haven't fed it sugar. But I promise you, if you put all the ingredients in here, mix it up, and let it rise, it's gonna work. This is 1 1/4 cup of just water, tap water. As long as it's not super hot, you're gonna be okay. Now I'm gonna get my bread flour. You don't have to do bread flour. I think it gives you a chewier, more bakery style bread. If you just have all purpose, that's okay. But you'll wanna reduce your water a little bit because it actually does make a difference. The bread flour absorbs more water. So I'm gonna do 3 1/2 cups of bread flour. I get King Arthur bread flour from Costco in 10-pound bags. Buying it online is expensive, but if you have a Costco or a Sam's Club, they typically have 10-pound bags, and those are a good price. This is a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Yes, you can use melted butter, but vegetable oil will stay softer, it's easier to work with, and it's cheaper. This is 2 tablespoons of sugar. The rolls won't taste sweet. 2 1/2 teaspoons of instant yeast. Now I use instant yeast because it's just less finicky. It's not as particular about temperatures. But if you use regular active dry yeast, you still can make this recipe this exact same way. You don't have to bloom the yeast. You don't have to foam it or mix it with warm water. You can dump it right in here and it's fine. The instant yeast works a little bit faster. Rise times go down to about 45 minutes instead of an hour. And it doesn't worry so much about the temperatures being correct. If the temperatures are wrong, if you have everything cold in here and you use regular yeast, it's still going to work. It just will take a little bit longer. My final ingredient is salt, 1 1/2 teaspoons. So now I'm just gonna turn this on the lowest setting. Everything's in here. The only thing you need to worry about at this stage is if your liquids and flour are correct. Half of the time when you're making bread, you're gonna need to tweak things a little bit. And by that, I mean like a teaspoon or 2 more of liquid or a teaspoon or 2 more of flour, which is why I don't bother weighing my ingredients because it's going to come down to eyeballing it and tweaking it in the end. So let's turn this on. Okay, when you are trying to figure this out, this is a little bit too wet. And the way I can tell is that it's not pulling away cleanly from the bowl. It's leaving marks, especially in the center. So let me show you again. It's not terrible, you could work with it, but when I touch it, it feels wet, it's sticking to my hands. It just needs a few more teaspoons of flour. I'm not even gonna take a measuring spoon out. I'm just gonna get this little tiny bit, probably not even use all of it. and just mix this. So you can see this is holding its shape much better already. Part of that is because the flour is just sitting on the outside, but also the consistency really is changing. Okay, so this I like. It's starting to pull away here. It does still feel slightly sticky to the touch, but it's not like how it was before where it was sticking to my hands. Now I can touch it and my hands come away clean. The machine here will do a great job. I'm gonna let this run for about 5 minutes of kneading, just on the lowest setting. If you were using a KitchenAid, it would take actually closer to 10 minutes. And what you would wanna do is give it about 3 minutes of kneading time, let the machine rest, 3 more minutes, let the machine rest. With this mixer, it's a little more powerful, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm just gonna let this run for about 2-3 minutes, and then we'll check it. So I wanna show you something really quick to tell whether your dough has been kneaded enough. There's something called windows in the dough. What you do is you stretch it out. You take about a golf ball sized piece, and you stretch it, and what you're looking for is this translucent property. It's workable. You can see that I am getting this already. I'm gonna let it maybe 1 more minute. Let's check on this. Here you can see areas that are translucent, and these are called windows in your dough. You only get these when the gluten is developed enough and it stretches out from kneading. So you could go a little bit longer, but this is good. We're seeing windows, we're good to go. If you're working with a dough that's sticky, the best thing to do is to spray your hands with a little bit of ham. But I think this one is gonna be easy enough to handle. All we need to do at this point is let it rise. With the instant yeast, this should only need about 45 minutes of rising time. My favorite place to do this is in the oven, which is warmed but off. My oven has a bread-proof setting, but leaving it on that setting will be too hot. So I turn it on to bread-proof, and then once it's hit that temperature, I turn it off and I put it in there. You don't have to worry about shaping your dough at this stage. So I just do it in a loose ball. But this doesn't have to be anything in particular. And you can see we could have easily doubled this recipe and have plenty of room in the bowl and in the mixer, just to be more clear. This is fine. I always cover so this is just a clean, damp tea towel, not dripping wet. Just cover this loosely. I'm gonna cover this up so the holes aren't out, and put this in that warm spot, and I'm gonna check on this in 45 minutes, and then we'll shape it. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes in a slightly warm oven, and this dough has increased in size quite a bit. It's about doubled in size and is nice and bouncy. We are gonna shape this into rolls. This recipe, you can make 6 really big sub rolls. You can make 8 smaller ones. What I'm gonna do today is 6 that are normal size because I'm gonna serve this as a dinner sandwich. If you're dealing with a slightly sticky dough, just a little bit of ham on your hands like this will really help make everything easier to handle. You'll be able to scoop this out with no sticking at all. The best thing to do is to measure your dough in ounces or grams. You would do this by weighing the whole thing, figuring out how many grams you want each of your rolls to be, and then dividing them and weighing them. I'm just keeping it simple here. So I just take this, cut into it, and I'm gonna do 6 rolls today. I'm just eyeballing this. If I were doing 8, it probably would be easier because I could do halves, quarters, 8s. I like the size that you get with 6. So I'm gonna shape these into ovals just like this. I'm not doing anything complicated in terms of shaping, just a rough oval shape, and I'm gonna let them rest for a little bit, and that's gonna make them easier to stretch out into a longer sub shape so I don't get round rolls. I want oval shape rolls so that these are like this. So just stretch like this. Then I'm gonna take that same towel, cover this up, and let these rest about 5 to 10 minutes while I clean everything else up here. Okay, so these aren't gonna look any different at this point. All we've done is made them easier to work with and shape. This is a really handy baking sheet. It's just called a large baking sheet. It's not like an official quarter sheet or anything like that. It's a rimmed one that's really good for baking rolls because it will fit in a standard sized oven, but it holds a lot more than your basic jelly roll pan. I'm gonna line that with parchment paper. My plastic wrap is still having a hard time, so I'm not gonna be able to cover with that. I just wanna show you a really quick shaping of these. You do not need to be overly worried about shaping these rolls. So what we're gonna do is just stretch them out. You don't want it skinny, like it's not a breadstick, and it is gonna rise a little bit. We just gently stretch, and then all we're worried about is what they look like on the top. So on the top, you'll see this sort of getting pinched down. If you flip it over, it would look like this, and we can close that seam. I just take them, flip like it's something you could just do in your sleep. You're just real quickly underneath, closing that seam. You're not pushing down from the front, you're pulling from the bottom. When you flip it over, it has a nice shape. As these rise, they're gonna smooth out. All of this is just not something to be worried about. Just pinch. And then we're gonna put these on the baking sheet and give them plenty of room. There's a little air bubble there, that's fine, pop it. If it looks like a nice smooth oval roll, it's good. You don't need to overthink whether you did it right or not. If it looks right, it's right. You can see the size difference in mine is noticeable. I didn't divide them perfectly into 6 pieces, and I just do not care. If you do care, weigh them. I'm seeing a couple more air bubbles. I'm just gonna pop them and let these rise for 30 minutes. I'm gonna preheat the oven, brush these, or put sesame seeds on them and get them ready to bake. This was just at room temperature for about 45 minutes. I wanted to keep them out so I could keep an eye on them because of this towel situation. Typically, I would just put them in the same warm, turned off oven as I did the dough. So what I'm gonna do next is brush them with a little bit of melted butter. I'm gonna bake these at 425. In a lower rack, I'm gonna put this empty rimmed baking sheet. It has to be metal. And the point of that is to get this hot and empty, and I'm gonna pour water onto it to create steam. You wanna make sure you have this in here while it's preheating. So I'm just gonna brush these with butter super quick. Don't have to do this at all. You can also do an egg wash if you want them super shiny. You can just dust them with flour if you want more of a rustic look. I wanted them to be soft and squishy like you would get at a deli, but not have that rustic flour dust. It's all about looks, right? It doesn't matter. I don't want it super shiny like a basket of dinner rolls, which an egg wash will get you. You also can do sesame seeds, totally optional. So these are ready to go in the oven. I'm just gonna show you the process of adding the water for the steam. It's easy. It makes a lot of people nervous. It's nothing to be nervous about. Just make sure you don't use glass or it'll shatter. But this makes a huge difference. You can buy a super expensive steam oven, or you can just be brave and pour a cup of water into your oven. So hold on. Okay, so here we go. You want to do a full cup. And then don't just stand there with the oven door open because all the steam is coming out and the temperature's going way down. I always just pour it in, slide this in, work fast. And now I'm gonna set my timer and you'll see what a difference this makes. I'm gonna set it for around 18, but they might need a little bit longer. So basically anytime that I make bread, I try to have sandwiches for dinner that night because I hate the idea of cleaning everything up and then 2 hours later I'm back in the kitchen, re-messing it up and making something for dinner. I find it super annoying. What I'm gonna do now while the bread bakes is prep some stuff for the sandwiches. This is a super basic sub sandwich. This is a simple dinner, but it's good and people like it. So what I'm gonna do is pre-cook some bacon for a component of the sandwich, cut up the veggies, and then once the buns are done, I will show you what to do next to get all these sandwiches made and ready. The rolls are out of the oven, and when you take them out, especially if you don't do sesame seeds, you might think they don't look like anything special, but they really are super good and soft inside. Let me take this one and just show you, like really soft and squishy and just make the best subs. And I'm going to show you now, this is a great make-ahead sandwich that we love to do for busy nights. So you can take this recipe and just make like a huge loaf and then make the sub and cut it into slices. I'm just doing individual ones here, but whatever you want to do is up to you. The only reason I'm doing individual is because some of my children don't like it. So having that huge one isn't a great idea. I'm going to save some and just let them like make their own sandwiches. Probably just plain ham and cheese. I'm going to cut this normal way you would cut a sub roll, and you can see how soft this is. And for these sandwiches, I'm going to do a spread where it's a little bit of crumbled bacon mixed with mayonnaise. So for here, I'm going to do about a tablespoon of mayo for each sandwich, and then I'm going to do just a couple strips of bacon in here. And this gives you like a really good bacon flavor without spending a lot and wasting a lot of bacon. So you can even, if you want to make a BLT and you just have a little bit of bacon, you can do this, make this bacon mayonnaise spread, and then just layer on lettuce and tomato in a pinch. And it really does have good flavor. This is so simple. You really don't even need a video for this recipe. It's as basic as can be. But we're gonna do a thin layer on each side because I'm making these ahead of time. I really don't want any of the vegetables touching, and the mayonnaise actually does a pretty good job of protecting the bread from the sogginess of the veggies. And then for the meat, you can customize this however you want. I'm just doing ham and turkey. So 2 slices of ham, some turkey, much. Then I'm going to put the veggies in the middle. So I just do shredded lettuce, usually get thinly sliced onion, and then any type of cheese you want. I'm going to do Munster because my kids like it, but Swiss and cheddar are also really good. And then that's it. It's so simple, but if you wrap these up and put them in the fridge, they'll be fine for really up to a full day. So especially if you have a busy evening and you just want to pack a cooler, this is a really good choice. And the bread is just so good. It makes it feel so special and homemade. And it does save you a ton of money. And now the remaining rolls, I will just freeze, and you can defrost those individually, just right in the microwave on the defrost setting for about 1.5 minutes each, and they'll be just like you baked them, and you can make any kind of sandwich on that. So I hope you like it. It's basic. It's a good, versatile recipe though, and I think you'll find that it is a really helpful thing to know how to bake, oftentimes way more helpful than sandwich bread. So that's it. I'm going to link all of everything I use and all of the recipes you'll find linked in the description below, so you can print those out and access them easier. And that's it. Thanks for watching.